We're not part one, the scent of memory. Richard Bennett stood by the window of his study, flipping through a worn photo album. Morning sunlight poured across the pages, illuminating yellowing edges and frozen smiles. He paused on a picture of him in his 40s, thick hair, sharp jawline, and a confidence he barely remembered feeling. He smiled faintly, then wrinkled his nose. That smell again. It wasn't unpleasant exactly, just different. A mix of old paper, cedar wood, and something faintly stale. He lifted the collar of his flannel shirt and sniffed. There it was. Again. Maybe the detergent, he muttered to himself. It was the third brand he'd tried this month. Later that day, his granddaughter Emma came by for her usual Saturday visit. She bounced in like a burst of energy, dropping her backpack by the couch. "Hi, Grandpa. You smell like books and wood today," she said cheerily, curling up beside him. Richard raised an eyebrow. "Books and wood?" "Yeah, kind of like an old library, but cozy." She smiled, completely unaware that her words were planting a seed of worry. That night, Richard stood in the bathroom, inspecting himself in the mirror. His skin looked older, thinner. He reached for his aftershave but hesitated. Something deeper was going on. The next week, during his routine checkup, he brought it up to Dr. Morrison. "I've noticed a smell that just won't go away. It's not my cologne, not the laundry soap. It's me," Richard said, half laughing, half serious. The doctor nodded. "It's more common than people talk about. As we age, the skin produces something called tunonenal. It's caused by oxidative stress. Your skin chemistry changes, and the scent lingers. Especially in men over 70, Richard blinked. So it's not in my head. Not at all. And it's not about hygiene, it's biology." Back home, Richard stood at his kitchen sink, swirling green tea into his mug and slicing an orange. He had Googled everything: antioxidants, special soaps, even odor-neutralizing sprays. But more than that, something inside him had shifted. He no longer saw the scent as a nuisance. It was a sign. His body was speaking to him in a language he hadn't listened to before. That evening, as he folded laundry, he picked up his favorite flannel and brought it to his nose. "Books and wood," Emma had said. He smiled. "I've lived a good story," he whispered to himself. Part 2, the belly that wouldn't budge Frank Miller had always been that guy. The one who ran 5 miles before breakfast. The one with a handshake like a vice grip. The one who could still wear his high school Letterman jacket well into his 40s. But now at 76, Frank stood in front of his bedroom mirror, poking his stomach with a confused scowl. It puffed out like a proud balloon, defiant and immovable, no matter how many salads he ate or walks he took. "I swear I eat the same damn thing every day," he muttered, tightening his belt a notch, then loosening it again with a sigh. At the diner that morning, he met his old gym buddy, Leonard, who was busy demolishing a plate of eggs and hash browns like the metabolism gods had spared him. "Frank, you okay?" "You've got that face," Leonard said, sipping his coffee. Frank grunted. "You ever feel like your body's betraying you?" Leonard chuckled. "Only every day." Frank leaned in. "My arms and legs are thinner than they've ever been. But this gut? It's like someone stuffed a basketball under my shirt and glued it there." Leonard set down his fork. "That's called getting older, my friend. Testosterone drops, muscle disappears, and your body thinks it's funny to store fat right where it shows the most." Frank looked skeptical. "But I'm not eating any different than I was 10 years ago." "That's the thing. You don't have to. Metabolism slows down, muscles burn fewer calories, and belly fat sets up camp. Trust me, I've been reading about it." Later that night, Frank lay on the living room floor doing half-hearted crunches that felt more like mild suffering than progress. He gave up after 10. He flipped open his laptop and started searching. Why do older men gain belly fat? How to boost metabolism after 70? The answers were surprisingly consistent. Lift weights, eat more protein, cut the sugar. Not rocket science, just things he hadn't done since his coaching days. The next morning, he stood in front of the mirror again. Same belly, but this time, he wasn't just annoyed, he was motivated. He pulled out an old resistance band from his garage and dusted it off. Started with a few bicep curls, then squats while gripping the counter for balance. It wasn't much, but it was movement. A beginning. And when he grilled chicken that night, instead of microwaving a frozen dinner, he felt something shift. Not in his body just yet, but in his mindset. "Let's see what you've got, old man," he said to his reflection, patting his stubborn gut. Part 3. George and the ears that kept growing. George Whitman was not the vain type. He'd never dyed his graying hair, never fussed with creams or trendy grooming kits. He wore what was comfortable: button-ups, khakis, the occasional bolo tie when he felt bold. But today, something caught his attention in a way it hadn't before. He had just opened an old photo album, his wedding day in 1974. There he stood, tall, proud, with a full head of dark curls and clean, close-set ears. He looked at his reflection in the mirror now. "And were my ears always this big?" he asked aloud. His wife, Marion, glanced over from the doorway, eyebrows raised. "You've just noticed." George turned to her, half offended. "Wait, you knew?" She laughed softly. "George, we've been married 50 years. I've watched everything grow except your patience." Later that week, George was walking in the park with his son Michael and his 2 grandkids. As they took a break on a bench, his grandson Tyler squinted up at him and blurted out, "Grandpa, why are your ears so long?" Michael winced. "Tyler," George waved it off. "It's all right. He's just saying what I've been wondering." That night, curiosity got the better of him. He pulled out his laptop and searched. Why do ears get bigger with age? The answer? Cartilage never stops growing. Plus, gravity. Add in a lifetime of sun, wind, and time, and suddenly ears weren't what they used to be. He leaned closer to the mirror. His earlobes looked thinner now, stretched and soft, a little worn, like a favorite pair of leather gloves. "It's not bad," Marion said quietly, stepping behind him. "They suit you. You've grown into them." George smirked. "I look like I'm trying to catch radio signals. But you hear everything I say," she said with a wink. In the following weeks, George started paying a bit more attention to his skin. He drank more water, ate better, started using that moisturizer Marion swore by, though he insisted it was just for science. And when he passed the hallway mirror, he didn't grimace anymore. He looked at those ears, those stretched and softened curves, and thought, those ears have heard decades of laughter, love, arguments, and lullabies. They'd earned their space. Part 4. Robert and the Vanishing Calves. Robert Hale had always been a man on the move. As a former firefighter, he'd spent decades running upstairs, hauling hoses, and lifting people out of tight spots. Even in retirement, he kept active, hiking with friends, mowing his own lawn, walking the neighborhood trail every morning like clockwork. But lately, something had changed. He was halfway up his porch steps when he realized he was pushing off with his arms more than his legs. His calves, once solid and strong, felt thinner, like the strength had leaked out of them when he wasn't paying attention. He sat down on the porch bench, rubbed his legs, and stared. Later, he dug out an old photo from a fishing trip in his 50s. There he was, shorts, hiking boots, standing on a rock with legs like coiled rope. Now, his legs looked more like twigs and socks. "Hey, Dad," his daughter Natalie said during her next visit. "You okay? You've been quiet." "Do my legs look skinnier to you?" he asked, dead serious. Natalie blinked. "Well, you're older now." Robert nodded slowly. "Yeah, but I didn't expect them to just vanish." That night, he found himself reading about muscle atrophy in older men. It hit him harder than he expected. Lower testosterone, slower circulation, less intense movement. It wasn't just about aging, it was about not using the muscles that once came so naturally. He thought back. No more ladders, no more lifting. Even his morning walks were on flat ground. His calves hadn't betrayed him, he'd just stopped asking much of them. The next morning, Robert changed his route. He found a hill and walked it, slowly, panting a bit, but determined. When he got home, he did calf raises in the kitchen, holding on to the counter for balance. It wasn't glamorous, but it was something. Natalie noticed. "You look like you're training for a dance recital." He grinned. "I'm training to still climb stairs at 90. He started adding more protein to his meals too. Grilled salmon, eggs, black beans. He even downloaded a workout app. Not the kind with burpees and boot camps. Just one for balance, light strength, and stamina. Weeks passed. His legs didn't look like they did in that fishing photo, but they didn't feel like twigs anymore either. They felt awake. One afternoon, walking up those porch steps, he realized something. He hadn't grabbed the railing. Final thoughts. Stories. Time leaves behind. It was their monthly meetup, a ritual they'd kept going for years. "Smell that?" Richard said, sniffing the air dramatically. "Coffee," Frank guessed. "No," Richard grinned. "Victory. I used the baking soda trick. My shirts finally don't smell like a forgotten attic." The group laughed. George tugged at his earlobe and added, "I caught mine growing again. I swear, if these things get any longer, I'll start flying like Dumbo." Frank patted his belly. "This old thing? I'm officially on the resistance bands. My wife caught me flexing in the mirror. Said I looked like a confused action figure." Robert, calm and content, tapped his calves under the table. "I did stairs yesterday, twice, no hands." There was a pause, then a shared smile. They had all noticed things changing in their bodies, quietly, slowly, or suddenly. But instead of denying it, they'd done something different. They'd paid attention, not with panic or shame, but with curiosity, humor, and care. And that made all the difference. As the waitress refilled their coffee, Richard looked around the table. "You know, growing older isn't really about losing what we had. It's about learning what we still can do." George nodded. "And making sure we do it while we still can." They all raised their mugs, to ears that kept listening, to bellies that didn't give up, to skin that carried time, to legs that still move forward, to life, just as it is.